Have you ever considered how it would feel like capturing some of those amazing underwater portraits that you see out there on the internet? I have. I have for a long time been dying to shoot underwater, and up until a couple of days ago I hadn't tried it, but a while back I got gifted with a couple of these. Now this is an underwater bag to put your camera in and shoot through, and there's like these little finger holes that you can navigate your camera with, like see right there. And I thought, why not give it a try? Why not see where this is going to take me? So I asked a friend of mine to borrow her pool and her as a model and try to play around with these bags of mine. And in this video I'm going to explore and tell you a little bit about what I learned from my very first underwater photo session. So prior to the session I tried doing a little bit of research, but not nearly enough. I should have researched way more, because I thought that it would just be putting my camera in the bag and then it would be a piece of cake. I love being underwater. I love moving in water, so it couldn't be that big of a deal, could it? Well, guess again. There was a few things that I hadn't taken into consideration. I didn't even think to bring a pair of underwater goggles. I kid you not. So fortunately my friend's son had a pair that I could borrow with shark teeth. It looked really, really, really beautiful. Shark teeth is just my look. And that helped tremendously, because obviously I couldn't see the viewfinder in the bag. First time I tried two sessions underneath the water, two cameras basically underneath the water. One was my old Canon Rebel. It's I don't know which number of Rebel, but it's the Rebel 350, I think, 350D. So an old European model. It's my very first camera, and that didn't go very well, obviously, because it's a crop frame and not a full frame. So not only was there the magnification in the camera, but there was also magnification because of the water. Water magnifies a little bit, so I didn't take that into account. It didn't go very well with that camera. So I changed it up to my old 5D Mark II. I didn't want to get my new Canon R into the water, so I figured I wanted to try my Canon 5D2 in this one. As a lens I used a 50mm 1.4, and I would have loved to have a wider lens than that, because as I mentioned before, there is a crop factor in, there is a magnifying factor in the water. So a lot of the images where she's floating about looking all stunning, her hands and feet are cut off. So that's something to take into account. Also, practice sinking. I'm not very good at sinking. I'm a floater. I float too easily. A couple of times in my life I've tried to try diving, and all the times I've had a really, really tough time going down, and this was no different. So a lot of the images are from me being up here shooting down into the water with her being further down. It worked, but if you want to capture some that are a little further down, then really practice sinking. I can't state this enough. Another thing that I discovered was that the deeper you go, the less of light you're gonna have, and obviously, really, I could have guessed that, but I didn't think about it, and I didn't do enough research prior. Please don't make the same mistake that I did. And so some of the shots with her floating around and looking stunning are very, well, not very sharp, obviously, because there's a lot of water in between and there's not a lot of light going down there. I didn't have any artificial light that I could shoot into the water with. That's going to be for the next time I try this. This is not the last time I'm planning on shooting with these. It's just, this was the first time. But definitely up in the shallows of the water, that's where I captured the coolest portraits, I think, or the most well-lit portraits. So that's something to think about. And especially, I think, when you're starting out this, staying up in the shallow is not a bad idea. Just until you familiarize yourself with it, because there's, like, this is way more challenging than I thought it would have been. Like, not only was I trying to focus on capturing her underneath the water and getting the image right in the viewfinder, and on top of that, I was also struggling with water in my nose and my ears, and at the same time she was struggling with all these different things as well. So it wasn't straightforward. There's nothing straightforward about it, but it was a lot of fun. And as I mentioned, it's not gonna be the last time I do this. Another really important thing is to wear sunscreen. I know this doesn't sound like the most obvious thing, but and for many people they're gonna be like, I don't need sunscreen. But really, especially if you want a good amount of light, then you're gonna have the sun baking straight in on your neck and in your face, and the water is gonna reflect even more of that sun. So please wear sunscreen. It can be painful if you don't. Now, this was an incredibly physically challenging shoot, and even though it's a warm day, it got cold in the end. Fortunately, I wasn't wearing a wetsuit or anything like that, so I was also wearing a bathing suit, so I could feel, I had the same temperature on my body as she did, and I could feel when I started getting cold. That's one thing that I think is really, really important, that you take into consideration your model and how she's doing in the shoot, because it's going to be cold potentially, and even though it's warm in the weather, eventually the water is going to get to her. And especially if you shoot in the ocean or in a lake, make sure that she gets up and have some breaks, and that she can actually get a chance to warm up in between when the water is cold. Fortunately, we had a really nice day and the pool was heated, but if you want to shoot in a lake or in the ocean, you're not going to have that option. So make sure that you keep on gauging how cold your model is and how cold you are, because ultimately, not only are you challenging yourself with breathing, you challenge yourself with the visual aspects of it, you're also you're getting somewhat of a workout, really. And plus, on top of that, you're in an environment that you're not used to and that your body is not used to when it comes to the heat. So make sure to really stay tuned with your model. On that note, prior to submerging her in the water, make sure that you direct her in advance. You don't have the option of directing underneath the water. She can't see you and you can barely see her. So it's really, really difficult to get your vision across, especially when you're first starting out at this. I mean, and I'm new at this. Like, this is a type of session that I've never done before. So I was really surprised with how little space I had with creative directing. And obviously at the time, like, if I keep on practicing, I'm gonna get better at that, and so will you if you try to do this. But make sure that you direct and then you go under the water. There are a few things that the model needs to be aware of, like the mouth. Underwater, you have this tendency to breathe, like kind of breathe bubbles out your mouth, and that kind of gives us a fish mouth look. So make sure that you direct your model to kind of relax her face and try to have her, like, remind her to open her eyes, and that's so hard. That can be so hard. So there's a lot of things weighing down on her as well. So maybe the first time you do this is not the time to go all ambitious. Initially, I'd been wanting to toss in a bunch of fabric into the pool, and I wanted to do this grand dress. And in the end, we ended up doing a and she was wearing like a t-shirt and a skirt, and that was it. And we didn't change any outfits simply because we were working so hard on just getting the shots right. And so it became more of a creative, artistic shoot, more than the type of portraits that I usually make. But I'm really, really happy with the result as a first time shooting underwater. Another thing that gave me a really hard time as I was in the water was focusing on my model. Getting her eyes in focus was really, really hard, and I ended up taking the camera bag with the camera in it, and on some of the shots I actually had the lens submerged into the water, and then I was standing above water and were navigating on the back of this to kind of find her eyes. And that helped a little bit, but the moment that you submerge this and you go underwater and you are looking through the screen and you're trying to find her eyes and everything is all visually blurry, even though you're wearing goggles, that's really, really hard. So that's something that I have to work on. And when it comes to these bags, the Dicapac SLR pack, you can see here the length for the lens is really, really long. And so I actually have a lot of the shots where you can see the black ring in the frame. So I was trying to like push this in and like further in on the lens because I was having my 50mm there, and it's not a very big lens, so trying to hold this further in was really, really hard. I don't know how to get around that the next time, but I think I'll figure it out, maybe with some Velcro or something like that. But that's definitely something to take into consideration. Some of the times the black circle in the frame actually gave the image a little bit of an artistic look that I kind of liked, but not in all the frames. So there was definitely some limitations that I had to kind of work around, and you will probably have some of this, some similar experiences. But there's a lot of trial and error when you go in the water with a person, photographing him or her. And really, the most important thing I can encourage you to do is just try it and do your research in advance, first of all. So when I was editing these images, there was other things that suddenly became a challenge. Water is way dirtier than I thought. There's a ton of specks and like little things floating around in the water that you have to edit out. If you want to, obviously you can leave them, but water is really dirty and it's a little muddy. And one of the things that I read prior to the session was that ideally you want like clear salt water, then you want lake water, like clear lake water, and then you have pool water that is the dirtiest of them. And that's due to, not dirtiest, but it's due to some of the chemicals that create this kind of muffle effect. So if you want really crispy, clear images, you have to shoot in a natural body of water that is clear, it's crystal clear, and I am definitely going to go look for that and then take into account how cold that's going to be. But it's the traditional rules of editing doesn't apply to these images. There is somehow the image is more fragile. The colors are different and more difficult to work with. The skin is different and more difficult to work with. So all in all, in the whole experience, there's all these new things to take into consideration, but it's a really, really fun challenge. And like, I think this one, a pack like this is maybe $50 off of Amazon. I'm not sure, I haven't checked, but I haven't checked this specific pack. But I found some packs that are around like $40–50. So you can go out and you can do it, and frankly you can practice fairly easily. And it doesn't have to be a full-on portrait session or anything like that. You can practice with your kids or with your animals. It doesn't really matter as long as you have fun with it and you practice. One thing to take into consideration, if you want those half-submerged images where you kind of see the nose is underwater and the eyes are above water, for that you need a dome. So you need like I don't know how to get, I don't know if these have domes, like if you can buy a dome, but because of the way the magnification of the water works, everything that's gonna, when you have a flat lens like this, everything that's gonna be below water is gonna appear bigger than anything that's above water. So you can use that as a visual effect, and that can be really, really cool, but just be aware of it if you want that clear-cut, perfect shot of some underwater and some above water. But as a conclusion, it was a ton of fun to do, and it was challenging in ways that I haven't experienced in a while, and it really made me it really challenged my creativity, and it challenged the way I think about what is a good portrait. So for the learning experience, this was invaluable, and I will definitely recommend doing it. Just make sure that you take these precautions that I told you about. But besides that, go and have fun with it. Just try it out and see where it takes you. You don't have to take this to a whole new level. You don't have to become a pro at underwater portraits. But it is a branch that you can learn a lot from, and that can help develop you further as a photographer. I know I'm gonna do this again, and I'm gonna see if I can become even better at it. Or maybe one day I'll invest in a big proper underwater kit. But until now, I have a plastic rubber bag. And by the way, make sure before you put your camera in it, and before you put the camera and the bag underwater, put a little bit of piece of paper in this, and fully submerge it for at least 30 minutes. And if the paper is wet, then you know that your bag is not waterproof. So make sure that you test it prior to using it, and I would recommend doing that every single time, because you don't want your gear to get wet, obviously. I really loved the way these portraits turned out, and I can't wait to see how I'm going to progress in this and how my portraits are going to change, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to bring with me from underwater photography into my regular photography. Now, this was my first experience with underwater photography, but there's going to be more videos like this. I can almost guarantee it. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, comment in the comment section below if you want to see more underwater photography, or send me some inspirational images of underwater portraits that you absolutely love. I would love to see what you get inspired by when it comes to underwater photography. Until next time, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you soon.